Welcome to the Breakthrough Ideas in Training webinar series. Today we are extremely fortunate to have Mark Sanborn with us. He is talking on our topic of leadership. His topic is called Leading Growth in Your Organization. I just want to take a second here and tell you about Mark. I've actually known Mark now for 15 years. He is a true thought leader in leadership. Our company has hired him numerous times to speak to different organizations. But we actually did something that was really kind of interesting, and that is we actually had Mark come back to our group 3 times in a row, every 6 months. And it provided such great continuity to the message that we were building. And previously, we'd hired a lot of speakers, and you hire one, and everyone gets up, yay. But have the continuity, and what he brought to the message was really great. And Mark, his content is great, his presentation is great, but I also going to tell you about his book, The Fred Factor, because it's a fun book, and I've had every one of my kids read it. And to me, it was just such a great way for me to talk about one of the most important things, which is attitude. And I know you've sold like 2 million copies of the book, and I just want to encourage everyone here, if you have kids, read it. For that matter, you should read it yourself. I mean, it's a wake-up call for everyone to talk about those little things that make all the differences. I have talked way too much. Mark, welcome, and let me start off by allowing you to just share a little bit about yourself and your background with everyone.
Great. Well, thanks, Evan. It's great to be part of this webinar series, and I'm a big believer that ideas can change your life. The right ideas applied in the right way can make all the difference. So I like the idea of pursuing breakthroughs. I think all of us, no matter how good we become, eventually plateau. And as I often share with my clients, the greatest challenge in business and life isn't becoming the best at what you do. That's difficult, no doubt. But an even greater challenge is once you become the best at what you do, how do you keep getting better? My background is in sales and marketing in the publishing industry many years ago, but for the past 29 years I've been speaking, writing, and advising leaders on how to turn ordinary into the extraordinary, which is really what the Fred Factor is about. It's a true story. It's not a parable. It's about an ordinary postal carrier who made his job extraordinary through a number of factors, including thoughtfulness, creativity, passion, and commitment. That postal carrier, Fred Shea, has retired recently, but audiences still resonate with the idea that it isn't the job you've got as much as it is how you do the job that makes the difference. And really, the big message of not only the Fred Factor, but my last 5 books, the underlying theme, although the books have addressed different topics, the underlying theme is this: nobody can prevent you from choosing to be extraordinary. You may not always be encouraged to do it. You may not always be rewarded or recognized. You may not have been taught how to do it. But you choose whether or not you live the ordinary moments of each day in an ordinary manner, or you choose to go above and beyond the call of duty and make those moments, to the degree that you can, extraordinary.
I know we're going to be talking about growth, but I got to ask you just a couple quick tips here about how you have that attitude of extraordinary. Maybe you could share with everyone.
Well, the first tip seems counterintuitive in a world that moves, at 100 miles an hour, but to be thoughtful, you need space. And if you're too busy, if you're moving too fast, you'll miss the opportunities you have to be thoughtful and to add value to an interaction, or to deepen a relationship, or to do something that really delights a client. One of the great paradoxes I've found in leadership is that often by doing less, you accomplish more. Now, that doesn't mean you're not working hard. It just means that you get past some of the superficial and unimportant things that we do to stay busy, because I think activity is the anesthesia of people who don't have a clear sense of purpose or direction. And by really focusing on what matters most, then we can start to have that space to plus those moments, or to add value to them.
That's really cool thought, really cool thought. So as a leader, how do we grow a business?
There are only 2 ways to grow any business in the world today. Evan, I know that you and I, as we speak to audiences, occasionally will say things and people will push back or disagree, and that's fine, because that means they're thinking about what we say. But I've never had anyone resist, push back, or disagree with this simple idea. The only 2 ways to grow any business in the world today, any organization, is number 1, grow yourself, number 2, grow your team. Everything flows from that. Creativity, productivity, operational excellence, great service, effective selling. It all begins from making the skill set that you have better and better and better. Because money can give you opportunity, but money can't give you skills. You know, if you give somebody a lot of money and they don't know how to handle that money, in short order, the money's gone. The same is true in business. If you really want to keep growing your business, you've got to keep growing yourself and your team, or eventually the revenues are going to plateau because you're not bringing anything new and better to the party.
Okay, so you're talking to people that when we presented this to people, we said, this is about you. It's about helping you grow and helping you be better at what you do. So share your advice. How would someone help themselves grow?
Well, first, I think this is a great step in the right direction. You know, anyone that's making time to watch this is obviously got an interest and some commitment to growth. Let me remind people, nobody really has time for anything. You know, we make time for what's important. When somebody says they don't have time, what that means is they've chosen to devote their time to something else. So if you really are committed to growing, you've got to make it a priority. People rarely, if ever, grow by accident. You know, you rarely wake up and go, wow, I've really grown a lot in the past year. You might have grown a little bit unintentionally, but by and large, it's about being intentional and identifying, number one, where do you most need to grow? You know, we don't need to grow in every area of our lives. I think people do it wrong when they try to become 100% better at 100% of the things they do. That diffuses their power, and frankly, you don't need to grow in all areas. Sometimes good enough is good enough. But you need to identify what is it that you do that creates the most value, that creates the most revenue, and then ask yourself, what are the one or two skills in the next 6 to 12 months that if I learn those skills or improve those skills would make the biggest difference? Number two, I think you need to commit time. You know, if somebody were coming into your office, if you had a sales call or an important customer coming to visit, you wouldn't say, well, just swing by and if I'm busy, you can wait in the lobby, and if I don't have time, come back tomorrow. No, that's nonsensical. We give appointments to people that are important, and I think we should give appointments to activities that are important. And one of those activities is growth. One of those activities is, as the old cliche says, sharpening your saw. Whether it's reading about your industry, whether it's learning more about your company, whether it's finding out more background about your clients or your prospects, devote some time each day to grow. And then my final tip would be spend at least 15 minutes a day thinking. Now, at first, people say, well, I spend all day thinking. Well, we spend most of our days reactively thinking. Somebody calls us and we respond. Somebody comes into our office, we respond. A crisis occurs, we respond. Thinking, to me, is about leaving your iPhone or your computer at home and going maybe to a Starbucks or to a space where you won't be interrupted, people won't knock on your door, and simply proactively thinking about your business, about what you've learned, and about what you could do to get better. Separating that idea of activity that we talked about earlier with accomplishment. I think the most important question that leaders should be asking is, what am I accomplishing? Not how busy am I, not how full is my day, but what am I really accomplishing? I find that if you try to think for 15 minutes a day, at about minute 2, you start to get edgy because you've thought of a phone call you need to return, or an email that you need to send, or a meeting that you need to plan. But if you can get 15 minutes of very deep, reflective thinking done each day, it will be, in my opinion, one of the greatest, most effective things you can do to leverage your growth and to leverage the success of your business.
I think those are excellent points. And I think so many times people just totally confuse, I'm working 20 hours a day, to how productive I am, and am I doing the right things? And I also loved a lot about what you're talking about, really focusing on the things you're good at and building on those, because those are really important things. And so inspiring for me as a person, how do I inspire my team? How do I get my team? And I can tell you right now, one of the biggest frustrations people have in training is they feel like we have all this great material, but we just can't get people to embrace it. We can't get people to use it. And that they are, just as you described, too busy. So how do we get them to prioritize taking that time for their growth?
The average company in the United States invests less than 3% a year on training or development. And regrettably, too often, they think that simply means making resources available, having books and programs, online resources that people can avail themselves to. First, I think it's important to realize, and my friend Dr. Nito Kubain, who I've been friends with for over 35 years, once said, and I don't know if it's original to him, but it's a powerful thought, that expectation without education equals frustration. Anything you ask your team to do that they don't know how to do, that they haven't been taught to do, will both disappoint you and frustrate them. I'll give you an example of that. One of the cliches in businesses is we want our team to build relationships with customers and clients. And of course that sounds great, except that very few of us have ever had any relationship training whatsoever. I mean, we kind of go through life figuring it out as we go along. So in my book, The Fred Factor, for example, I talk about 7 B's of relationship building. They're very simple, not simplistic, they're very simple ways that you can deepen a relationship with anybody in your personal or your professional life. Those need to be taught, but they also need to be learned. Which brings me to my next point, and that is learning should never be an option for someone on your team. We should never say, show up at work when you feel like it. That would seem silly. We have specific time. We want people to be at work or specific things we want them to do. And I think early on, you need to establish at the hiring interview phase that growth is not optional, that to continue to grow your earnings potential, you've got to continue to grow your value proposition. If you keep paying people more for the same things they've always done, over time, you can't afford them, and it's very bad fiscal management. So number 2, don't make it an option. But then number 3, make it engaging to the degree you can, make it as enjoyable as possible. I think the problem with a lot of training and development is the problem we have in a lot of churches and synagogues and university classrooms and elementary school classrooms, and that is teachers that really aren't committed, enthused, or particularly good at delivering ideas. There's so many good resources available in terms of live presentations, online seminars, and coursework that if you do a little extra work in finding the best, the most engaging, you'll be amazed at how much easier it is to get people interested and involved. So I would say clarify what it is you want people to learn. Make sure that it's not an option. Make sure that they realize this is a job requirement. And then number 3, work a little extra hard to make sure that the training and development you offer isn't just good, but that it's enjoyable too.
Those are excellent ideas. And I can tell you from my experience, every year in the annual review, there's a training plan. What's the training plan for the year? And my company's a training company, so we believe everything you're saying. This is the question for you, though. The people you're talking to are believers. How do you get upper management to believe? How do you get them to realize that they've got to give the people the time to do the training?
Well, Evan, probably you and a lot of the folks listening or watching today have heard this, but there's an old management saying that says when you go to train and you say you can't afford it, one of the ways you justify that is you say, well, what if we train them and they leave? The better question is, what if you don't train them and they stay? And I think that's what you've got to sell to upper management. You've got to sell that this is not frivolous, that this is a direct impact on profitability. Good example of that. Sales organizations often say that selling is a numbers game. That's not exactly true. If you are currently making 20 calls a day, but you're not a good salesperson, doubling your call rate to 40 won't make you a better salesperson and won't improve your close rate. Sales is a numbers and skill game. If you're making 20 calls a day and you can make that salesperson twice as effective on each call, you'll double your close rate, and then if you increase the activity level, you'll see even bigger gains. So it's not enough to just get people to go through the motions. If people are answering calls in call centers and they don't know what to say or how to say it pleasantly, you're throwing money out the window by alienating customers, killing loyalty, and sending them to your competition. And I'm always puzzled how someone could rise very far in leadership in an organization, especially how they could get to the C level and not see the critical importance of training and development as one of the few levers that you have that directly impacts performance.
Well, I completely agree with you. I think it's the fundamental part of every business. And I think it's important in training for someone that's running a training department to recognize that they, in essence, are the salesperson for that training effort, that they are the ambassador of training, and that they need to help educate people on it and help measure results and show people and say, okay, look, if we could just change this retention number, or we could just do this, this is the economic impact, and these are the things we can do. So I think that your ideas are really spot on. Okay, you got a question here that says if we have time, and we have time, which is good.
Sure.
What are the keys to business growth, sales, and revenue?
I, many years ago, was on a program with the former CEO of Porsche, and he said something that has stuck with me. And he said, you know, that a bad idea well implemented is better than a great idea not well implemented. And certainly you could argue that you don't want to implement really bad ideas really well. But what he was saying is too often we have great plans and great strategies and great tactics, but really crappy implementation. I think, and I call it IQ, not IQ as in, you know, intellect or intelligence quotient, but implementation quotient. It's the distance between what you know and what you're doing. And I think that growth and profitability come from being extraordinarily good at operations. You know, done well and efficiently will save you money and increase opportunities. Sales and marketing, which I see is, to simplify a bit, marketing is getting people to want what you have, and then sales is getting them to buy what you have. You know, so you create the desire, and then you create the sale, and then of course service is about the experience that people have in doing business with the organization. It's not confined just to the customer service department or to the call center or to the technical support team. So you need to ask each of the people in each of those areas, what one thing, if we did it better, would make the biggest difference in the success of this part of the organization: operations, sales and marketing, service. That's not to rule out the other important functions like HR or you know, the fiscal side of the business. But I believe in an idea I call picking low-hanging fruit. You know, there's a lot of fruit in a tree, and you can get a ladder and start at the top, but why not start by picking the fruit that you can reach without the ladder? And if you can systematically knock off those bits of low-hanging fruit, you say, what's that one thing, if we did it better, would make the biggest difference in the results that you're able to achieve in your department? That's a great place to start. The second question, if you were to ask a second question, is what one thing, if you learned it, would make you more productive or effective? In other words, don't try to be clairvoyant in terms of what people need to learn. And by the way, if you couple what they want to learn with what they need to learn, they're going to be pretty motivated. I mean, most people who are frustrated that they can't sell more or that they don't know how to deal with an unhappy customer, if you provide them the training that makes them more adept and effective at doing that, they're going to be jazzed.
That's a great point. I really like that point. You know, because it's so simple and somewhat obvious, yet I've never heard it stated that way. So I think that's fabulous. What a great way to end the interview part. I know that you have a really fantastic offer for everyone here, and please share that offer. And on the screen below you is going to be the details of how to get the offer, and please let us know.
I wrote a book called Doing Leadership. It started out as a series of blogs where I looked at the 6 things that almost every effective leader I've ever worked with, observed, or read about has done. 6 things that I try to do in my own business. And it's a very straightforward, basic book that will help anyone who's interested learn to lead or lead better. It breaks it down into 6 short components with some actionable ideas, and it's called Doing Leadership. It's an ebook, and for anyone that would like to receive that, it's absolutely free. The link is at the bottom of the screen. You can go to that link and download the book. But I do hope, Evan, that people will go to marksanborn.com, because I blog every week, sometimes twice a week. I also blog with some other colleagues, and we try to bring people a great deal of useful ideas and information for free, knowing that if they get value in what we do for free, they'll realize that we can provide even more value if they engage us to work with them in their organization.
Well, truly great offer, something that everyone can use. And I love the idea of the 6 things. The thing, Mark, that I love about you and why I've hired you to speak so many times is you take complex ideas and make them simple, and you provide them in ways in which someone can really literally do. And that's important because so many times you go and you hear a speaker and you leave there and you go, wow, that was motivating. And then go, okay, now what am I going to do? And it's like, I don't know. But you bring it home.
Well,
And
you're very kind. Thank you. I
no,
appreciate it.
I sincerely mean it. I sincerely, I mean, literally have every one of my kids read your book. I've got my 14-year-old about to give her the book now. The first two, I mean, it's just a great way to talk about attitude in life because it's not, to me, and this is beyond business, it's not what you do in business, it's what you do everywhere. It's your attitude everywhere. You don't just turn it on, turn it off. The book's inspiring. Anyhow,
Thanks.
we have run out of time. Again, thank you so much for taking your time to be part of this series. We truly appreciate it. I want to encourage everyone, if you have friends that should see this, please, have them register, share for the link. If you want, we have a great deal that's going to be on the screen. You can actually buy the whole series downloaded, so you could share this with your team and people. There are a lot of speakers I know you can't get every day to listen, that you can make sure that you hear every speaker in the series. It's incredibly affordable, a great value, and encourage everyone to consider that too. And everyone, just have a terrific day and look forward to tomorrow's presentation. Take care.